What's up, team? Professor Matt Blasdel talking to you in week 9 from Gracie, Barra, San Clemente about having and developing heart. I was very young the first time that I was introduced to the concept of having heart, whether it was, seeing someone, who was just huge and lovable and bigger than life, and hearing things like, wow, that person's just got such a big heart, or as it relates to competition, hearing things like, wow, what a fierce competitor. She's got so much heart. And it really wasn't until I heard Professor Flavio's comments on the topic of teaching heart that it really crystallized in a way where I wanted to talk about it this week. So, for those of you who aren't aware, Flavio was reacting to a comment that he heard, I think, on a clothing line about you can't teach heart. And he had this sort of visceral response to that by saying, that's just bogus. I know for a fact you can. In fact, it's what we do every single day at Gracie Baja. And that was knowing him and knowing Gracie Baja and knowing this art, it was actually a very easy thing to agree with. But the point that I wanted to share today was that I believe Jiu Jitsu has a unique ability to help us, number one, see the heart that we already have, and number two, as Flavio was saying, to help us develop it. So I think there's kind of 3 main pillars of what having heart consists of. And the first of those is what I would call strength. And I'm not alluding to physical strength at all. I think it's very easy to look at a large, strong athlete and say a lot of positive things about them, but that's not typically the type of athlete that you would say, wow, that person's got a lot of heart. You would be saying, wow, that person's a beast, or wow, that person's a savage. But this idea of heart is a different kind of strength, and it's really the mental kind. And I think Jiu Jitsu is unique in its ability to help us understand the amount of mental strength and fight that we have in us. Part of the art in dealing with the leverage that exists cannot help, regardless of our size, from putting us in positions where it is literally just about the amount of fight and toughness and strength that we have. It's about our willingness to give up. I don't care if I'm giving up 100 pounds to somebody or whether or not I outweigh somebody by the same amount. I'm going to be in spots with Jiu Jitsu where I know it's a 50-50 fight, and I can tell because we're locked in this spot. And this beautiful thing happens every time that's the case, because whether it is fatigue that gets the best of us, or whether it is fear that gets the best of us, or whether it is just a lack of confidence that gets the best of us, the more we train this art, the more we find ourselves in that spot, and the more that we communicate to ourselves about what our mental strength really is. If we give up early, we know it. Our trained opponent might not, but we certainly do. And the more time you spend on the mat, the more, in my experience, that you elect to choose the tougher decision. You elect to hold on a little bit longer. You elect to forego the fear that something bad's going to happen, and you try to find the leverage that you know exists if you can just get your hand back in, or if you can escape your hips a little bit, or if you can get your forearms back to frame your opponent. And I love this part about Jiu Jitsu because regardless of where we are when we start our journey, you get into enough of these spots, and after having made the right decision a couple of times, you get to know deeply that you do have heart, that you do have mental strength, and you know that over time it's developing in a way where it's getting stronger and stronger. The second pillar, I believe, exists in this concept of courage. I think it is very rare that somebody steps on the mats with zero feelings of animosity or angst, because there's a lot of unknowns when you step on the mat. And certainly the older you are, or the more meek you are, or the less strong you are, or the less flexible you are, the more these insecurities feed on you, and the more that you must overcome your fears to get on the mats. But for literally everyone who spends time on the mats, as you get through blue belt and on your way up through the black belt, you must get through these times where you are definitely afraid. I'd be hard-pressed to come up with a single example to the contrary, and certainly for those who compete, it is magnified that much more. I don't know of any competitors that stepped on the mat in a competitive setting for the first time and weren't at least feeling a pretty profound sense of butterflies. And this connects us to, I think, one of the great truths in life, which is that courage is not a function of not having fear. Courage is very much a function of having fear and doing it anyway. And for most practitioners, I believe this courage manifests because they are so passionate about something that it gives them the will to overcome this fear that they have. And I've been so heartened to see that play out in so many beautiful ways with my colleagues and with my mentors. It's truly a powerful example of what exists. But mental strength, courage, and the last pillar of which I just care so deeply about, and it's this emotional piece. You know, we hear, at least I heard growing up, this concept of, real men don't cry. And it's funny, fast forwarding all these years, I would say whoever said that or made that up never went to a belt ceremony where they would see, artists who have clearly transcended, whatever beginnings of mental toughness existed, or clearly transcended any amount of fear that they had to become what they are as black belts. And it's a very emotional thing that happens when, a promotion exists, or when the finality of, the black belt comes for some practitioners, and it's an emotionally overwhelming thing. And when you get to the core of that, it really warrants exploring. It's like, well, what is that really? What is this emotional thing that's there, and how does that connect to having a heart and developing heart? I would argue very strongly that when we step onto the mats, we are any number of different things. Maybe we've already got a ton figured out. Maybe we have incredible relationships. Maybe we've really honed a deep sense of personal discipline. But that would very much be the minority. I think for most of us, we step on the mats, searching for something. And perhaps, putting on these funny clothes and donning a white belt is our way of just proving to ourselves that we are worthy in some way. But the thing that I love most about the mats in this capacity is that regardless of who you are when you step on the mats, whatever hot mess that may be, Jiu Jitsu absolves you of whatever that is in return for you making a singular promise. And that promise is that whatever version of you exists today is going to be a memory tomorrow, because you are going to take what this art offers and make good on the beauty of it by being a better version tomorrow. And it's this type of emotional vulnerability that is kind of given safe passage by your time on the mats, where we become not so much averse to our emotions, but we really be connected to them in a deep way. It gives us an opportunity to really be connected in a passionate way to something that's bigger than ourselves. I think for most of us, it's really about connecting in a meaningful way to this brotherhood. And when we do, and we see what this journey provides for our colleagues, it is absolutely an emotionally overwhelming thing. And it connects us in a powerful way to the best that's there in ourselves, because when we see it exist in others, we know as a matter of absolute fact that heart can be developed, because we see it be developed every single day on the mats. So that's what I have for us this week, you guys. I think the opportunity exists in taking a step back and identifying where are we right now, and where's our opportunity to grow our mental toughness, to overcome our fear, and to breathe life into our emotional vulnerabilities so that we can get nothing in the way of who we want to become. That's what I have for you this week, guys. Love to roll with you as always. Look forward to seeing you this week. Os.